911, what's your emergency? Mommy stopped breathing. The voice was small, terrified, maybe 6 years old. Okay, sweetheart, I need you to stay calm. Where are you? In the car. We're in the parking lot. The big store with the red letters. Target. Are you at Target? Yes. Please help. Mommy won't wake up. The dispatcher's fingers flew across the keyboard. I'm sending help right now. They'll be there in 3 minutes. Can you unlock the car doors for me? I don't know how. That's okay. What's your name? Emma. Emma Grace Mitchell. Dispatch radioed Rescue Unit 7. Paramedic Marcus Webb was 2 blocks away when the call came through. Unresponsive female, early 30s, vehicle in Target parking lot, child on scene. Just another call. His 14th shift of the week. He was running on coffee and muscle memory, the way he'd been running for the past 8 years, ever since he'd made the choice that hollowed him out and turned him into exactly the kind of man he'd once promised himself he'd never become. Marcus had no idea that in 4 minutes and 37 seconds, his entire carefully constructed life of emotional numbness would detonate. He had no idea that the past he'd been running from was waiting for him in a silver Honda Civic, driver's door open, a little girl with dark curls screaming for someone to save her mommy. He had no idea that the woman slumped over the steering wheel, lips turning blue, was Sarah. Sarah Mitchell had felt the tightness in her chest start at the grocery store. She'd ignored it. She always ignored it. Single mothers working 2 jobs didn't have the luxury of paying attention to their bodies. Emma was chattering in the back seat about the goldfish crackers she'd convinced Sarah to buy. Sarah smiled at her daughter in the rearview mirror, but the smile felt wrong. Her left arm was tingling. The pressure in her chest was building, like someone was standing on her sternum. Not now. Please, not now. She had a shift at the diner in 2 hours. Emma needed to be dropped at Mrs. Chen's. The electric bill was 3 days overdue. Her student loans, the ones from the nursing degree she'd never finished, were in default again. She couldn't afford to be having a heart attack at 32 years old, but her body didn't care about her schedule. Sarah pulled into the Target parking lot, thinking she'd just sit for a moment, catch her breath. The pain would pass. It always passed. She put the car in park. "Mommy, are you okay?" Sarah tried to answer, but the words wouldn't come. Her vision was tunneling. The last thing she heard before the darkness took her was Emma's voice, high and scared. "Mommy?" Marcus saw the Honda first. Driver's door open, engine running, hazard lights flashing. Then he saw the little girl. She was standing next to the car, phone pressed to her ear, tears streaming down her face. Dark curls, big brown eyes. She couldn't have been older than 6. Something about her made his chest constrict. Marcus pushed the feeling away. He was good at that. He'd had 8 years of practice. "Emma," he called out, grabbing his medical bag. His partner, Jesse, was right behind him with the gurney. The little girl's head whipped around. "Are you the help? Are you going to save my mommy?" "We're going to do everything we can, sweetheart. I need you to step back, okay?" Marcus reached the driver's side and looked in. The world stopped. Time fractured. Because the woman slumped over the steering wheel, unresponsive and cyanotic, was Sarah Chen. Not Sarah Mitchell. Sarah Chen. Except she'd changed her name, apparently. But it was her. He'd know her anywhere. The same high cheekbones. The same small scar on her left temple from the time she'd hit her head on his apartment's cabinet door, and he'd kissed it better. The same constellation of freckles across her nose that he used to trace with his finger while she slept. Sarah. The woman he'd loved. The woman he'd destroyed. The woman he'd abandoned 8 years ago when she'd told him she was pregnant. "Marcus! Check her pulse!" Jesse's voice snapped him back. Training took over. Marcus's hands moved automatically, checking carotid pulse, Weak, thready, assessing breathing, shallow, labored, noting the pallor and cyanosis. Probable cardiac event. They needed to move fast, but his mind was screaming. 8 years. 8 years he'd been running from this, and here she was, dying in front of him. Pulse is weak, respiration shallow. Possible, my. Let's get her on the gurney. Start oxygen. Prepare for CPR if she codes. His voice was steady, professional. Years of training allowed him to compartmentalize, even as his entire world was imploding. They worked quickly, moving Sarah from the car to the gurney. Marcus started an IV line. Jesse placed the oxygen mask. The little girl, Emma, was crying, her small fists pressed against her mouth. Is my mommy going to die? Marcus looked at her. Really looked at her. Dark, curls, brown eyes. That same stubborn set to her chin that Sarah had when she was determined about something. She was 6, maybe 7 years old. 8 years ago, Sarah had been pregnant. The math was devastatingly simple. Sir, is she going to be okay? Marcus crouched down to Emma's eye level, and when he spoke, his voice cracked for the first time in 8 years. What's your mommy's name, sweetheart? Sarah Mitchell. We live at 28-47 Oakwood Avenue, apartment 3B. She works at June's Diner, and also at the hospital cleaning at night. She's very tired all the time, but she says it's okay because she's strong and she takes care of me. The words tumbled out in the way children recite information they've been taught for emergencies. Mitchell. She'd changed her name, gone back to her mother's maiden name probably, erased every trace of him. He deserved that. Does your mommy have any family we should call? Your daddy? Emma's face clouded with confusion. I don't have a daddy. It's just me and mommy. The words landed like a physical blow. I don't have a daddy. We need to move, Jesse called from the gurney. Sarah's oxygen saturation was dropping. Marcus stood, and as he did, Emma grabbed his hand. Her small fingers wrapped around his, trusting and desperate. Please save my mommy. She's all I have. Please. Marcus looked down at this little girl who might be his daughter, who definitely was Sarah's entire world, and made a promise he wasn't sure he could keep. I'm going to try, Emma. I promise I'm going to try. Marcus Webb had been 24 years old and absolutely certain he had life figured out. He was in his second year of paramedic training at County Medical, pulling straight A's, volunteering for extra shifts, building the foundation of what would be a brilliant career in emergency medicine. Maybe eventually he'd go to medical school, become an ER doctor. He had the grades, he had the drive. What he didn't have was time for complications. That's what he told himself when he first saw Sarah Chen in the hospital cafeteria. She was in her nursing program, first year, sitting alone with a massive anatomy textbook and a sandwich she wasn't eating. She was chewing on her pencil, dark hair falling across her face, completely absorbed. He'd meant to walk past her. Instead, he stopped. You know, temporal bones are way easier to remember if you think of them as the temple bones. That's where they sit. She'd looked up, startled, then smiled. That's actually helpful? Thanks. Marcus Webb, paramedic program. Sarah Chen, nursing. Obviously. She gestured at the textbook. He should have kept walking. He sat down instead. That was his first mistake. Or maybe his first moment of being actually, genuinely human. He'd been so focused on building his career, on being successful, on becoming someone his deadbeat father had never been, that he'd forgotten what it felt like to just connect with someone. Sarah was easy to talk to. She was funny. She was smart. She was working 2 jobs to pay for school, one at a coffee shop, one cleaning offices at night, and she never complained about it. She had this way of finding joy in small things. A perfect cup of coffee, a sunny day, the elderly patient who told her stories about World War II. She made him want to be better. They started studying together, then grabbing lunch together, then dinner, then spending every available moment together. 4 months later, Marcus was in love in a way he'd never experienced. It was all-consuming, terrifying, perfect. Sarah felt like home. "I'm going to marry you someday," he'd told her one night, lying in his cramped apartment with her head on his chest. "After we graduate, after we're settled, I'm going to marry you, and we're going to have one of those lives where we're both doctors, or nurses, or paramedics, and we tell our kids about how we met over temporal bones." Sarah had laughed. "Our kids?" "And at least 2, maybe 3. I want the whole thing, Sarah. With you." She'd turned to look at him, her dark eyes serious. "You mean that?" Every word. She'd kissed him then, and he'd believed every promise he was making. That was his second mistake, making promises he couldn't keep. "I'm pregnant." 2 words that changed everything. Sarah had told him in his apartment on a Tuesday night in March. She'd been crying. Not hysterically. Sarah wasn't the hysterical type. But quietly, tears streaming down her face while she clutched the positive pregnancy test in her hand. Marcus's first reaction was shock. Pure, absolute shock. They'd been careful. Mostly careful. There had been that one time, maybe 2, when they'd gotten carried away. But his second reaction was panic. A baby. They were going to have a baby. He was 24 years old. He had student loans. He was living in a 400-square-foot apartment with a bathroom that didn't have a working fan and a kitchen the size of a closet. He was barely keeping his head above water financially, even with the part-time EMT job he'd taken on top of his training. A baby would destroy everything he'd been working toward. "Marcus, say something. Please say something." He'd looked at Sarah, beautiful, scared, 23-year-old Sarah who'd had just as many dreams as him, and he'd felt it. Resentment. Anger. Panic so acute it tasted like metal in his mouth. How did this happen? His voice had been cold. He'd heard the coldness even as he spoke, but he couldn't stop it. "How do you think it happened?" Sarah's tears had dried up, replaced by something harder, defensive. "We had sex, Marcus, multiple times. Remember, when you said you loved me and wanted to marry me and have kids? Someday." I said someday. After we graduated, after we were established, after we had our lives together. He was shouting now. He never shouted. Not now. Not when we're broke and in school and barely adults ourselves. "You think I planned this?" Sarah stood up, her whole body rigid. "You think this is what I wanted? I'm in my first year of nursing school. I work 60 hours a week. I have less than $300 in my bank account. You think I'm happy about this? Then do something about it." The words came out before he could stop them. Cold, calculated, cruel. Sarah had stared at him like he'd slapped her. "What did you just say?" "You heard me. You have options. There are clinics. We don't have to do this. We can wait. Have kids later when we're ready. I don't want to do something about it. I want to figure this out. Together. Like partners. Like 2 people who love each other." Her voice broke on the last word. "Sarah, be realistic. We're kids ourselves. We can't raise a baby." "Then what do you want me to do, Marcus? What's your solution?" He should have stopped. He should have taken a breath, calmed down, thought about what he was saying. But the panic had taken over. The resentment. The fear that all his plans were crumbling. "I think you should take care of it. And if you won't, then I can't do this. I can't be a father. I'm not ready. I won't be trapped into this." The silence that followed was devastating. "Trapped," Sarah repeated quietly. You feel trapped. That's not what I... No, that's exactly what you meant. She grabbed her jacket from the back of his couch. Her hands were shaking. I need to go. Sarah, wait, don't. She held up a hand. Don't make this worse. Don't say anything else you can't take back. But Marcus was already all in on the worst version of himself, the scared, selfish version. If you keep it, you're on your own. I'm not doing this. I have goals, Sarah. I have a career to build. I can't throw that away because of one mistake. Sarah had looked at him for a long moment. In her eyes, he'd seen something die. The love, the trust, the faith she'd had in him. It all drained away, replaced by a cold recognition of who he really was under all the promises. One mistake, she'd said softly. Is that what I am? What we were? I didn't mean it like that. Yes, you did. And you know what? You're right. This was a mistake. You were a mistake. I thought I knew you. I thought you were different. But you're just another guy who says pretty things until reality shows up. She'd walked to the door, and Marcus, coward that he was, had let her go. Sarah, wait! She'd turned, one hand on the doorknob. Don't contact me. Don't come looking for me. I'll figure this out on my own. You're off the hook, Marcus. You get to have your perfect career and your perfect life without any complications. Congratulations. I hope it's everything you wanted. The door had closed behind her with a soft click. That was the last time he'd seen her, until today. Until he'd found her dying in a Target parking lot with their daughter standing beside her, begging him to save her mommy. Sarah's heart stopped in the ambulance. Marcus heard the cardiac monitor's high-pitched alarm, the sound every paramedic dreads, and his body moved before his mind caught up. She's in V-fib! Starting compressions! He positioned his hands on her sternum and began chest compressions. 1, 2, 3, 4. The rhythm was automatic, drilled into him through thousands of hours of training, but his hands were shaking. This was Sarah, the woman he'd loved, the woman he'd broken. Charging AED, Jesse called out. Clear. Marcus pulled back. The defibrillator delivered its shock. Sarah's body jerked. The monitor continued its alarm. No change! Resume compressions! Marcus pressed harder. Sweat dripped down his face. The ambulance was flying through traffic, siren wailing. 2 minutes to the hospital. She just had to hold on for 2 minutes. Don't you dare die. Don't you dare leave that little girl. Not after everything. Come on, Sarah, he whispered. Fight. Fight like you always did. Don't give up. 30 compressions. 2 rescue breaths. 30 compressions. 2 rescue breaths. Charging again. Clear. Another shock. Marcus watched the monitor, praying for a rhythm. Any rhythm. Nothing. Resume compressions. We're 90 seconds out. Marcus's arms were burning. His hands were cramping. He didn't care. He pressed harder, willing his strength into her body, willing her heart to start beating again. I'm sorry. God, Sarah, I'm so sorry. You deserved better. You deserved everything. And I gave you nothing. I gave you worse than nothing. But please don't die. Please don't make Emma grow up without you. She needs you. She needs you so much. Rhythm check. Marcus paused. The monitor showed a blip, then another. Weak, irregular, but there. We've got sinus Brady. Pulse is weak but present. We're here. Doors opening. The ambulance slammed to a stop at County Medical's ER entrance. The doors burst open, and a trauma team was waiting. Marcus had called ahead. STEMI alert. Cardiac arrest. In transit. 20 seconds of V-fib. Female, 32. Witnessed arrest. Probable cardiac event. 1 round of CPR and 2 defibrillations. Currently in sinus bradycardia. Marcus rattled off the medical details as they rushed Sarah into the ER. His voice was steady, professional. Inside, he was screaming. Dr. Patricia Morrison, the head of the ER, a woman Marcus had worked with for 6 years, took one look at him and pulled him aside. "Webb, you look like hell. What's going on?" "Nothing. I'm fine." "You just did CPR with tears running down your face. That's not fine. Do you know this patient?" Marcus opened his mouth to deny it, then closed it. What was the point of lying? We used to know each other, a long time ago. Dr. Morrison studied him for a long moment. "Go get cleaned up. We've got this. You need to step back. You're too close to this. Let us do our jobs." Her voice softened. "Marcus, I know you. I know you want to save everyone, but sometimes the best thing you can do is trust the team. Go." Marcus nodded numbly and walked to the staff bathroom. He looked at himself in the mirror. His face was pale. There was blood on his uniform. Sarah's blood. His hands were still shaking. 8 years. He'd spent 8 years trying to forget what he'd done, trying to become a better man through his work, saving strangers to make up for abandoning the one person who'd mattered. But you couldn't fix the past with the present. You couldn't balance the scales. He'd learned that the hard way. The bathroom door opened and Jesse stuck his head in. "Marcus, there's a little girl in the waiting room asking for the paramedic who helped her mom, Emma. She won't talk to anyone else." Emma. Marcus's daughter. Probably, almost certainly, the daughter he'd never known. Marcus straightened his uniform and walked to the waiting room. Emma was sitting on a plastic chair, looking impossibly small. A social worker was sitting next to her, trying to get her to eat a granola bar. "Emma!" She looked up, and when she saw him, she ran over and wrapped her arms around his legs. Marcus stood there, frozen, as this tiny person who might be half him, clung to him. "Is my mommy okay? Did you save her?" Marcus crouched down. "The doctors are taking care of her right now. They're the best doctors in the city. She's in the very best hands." "But is she going to be okay?" How do you answer that question? How do you give hope without making promises you can't keep? "The doctors are working really hard. Your mommy is a fighter. I can tell." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "She's so tired all the time. She works at the diner in the morning and then cleans the hospital at night. Sometimes she falls asleep standing up. I tell her she should rest, but she says we need the money." Each word was a knife in Marcus's chest. Sarah had been working 2 jobs, raising a child alone. Exhausted herself to the point of cardiac arrest at 32 years old. While Marcus had built his career, while he'd gotten promoted, while he'd moved into a nice apartment and bought a new car and never missed a bill payment. While Sarah had struggled and sacrificed and slowly worked herself to death. "Emma, does your mommy have any family? Anyone we should call?" Emma shook her head. "Grandma died when I was a baby. Mommy doesn't talk to Grandpa anymore. He was mean to her when she was pregnant with me. Said she was a disappointment. So it's just us." She said it matter-of-factly, the way children do when they don't realize how heartbreaking their words are. "Friends? Anyone your mommy would want here?" "Mrs. Chen from downstairs. She watches me sometimes when mommy works. And Ms. Rodriguez from the diner. She's nice." The social worker, a kind-looking woman in her 50s, made notes. "I'll make those calls, sweetheart." Marcus sat down next to Emma. He didn't know what else to do. She immediately leaned against him, her small body trusting in a way that destroyed him. "Can I tell you a secret?" Emma whispered. "Of course. Sometimes Mommy cries at night. She thinks I'm asleep, but I hear her. And sometimes she talks to someone who isn't there. She says things like, 'I wish you could see her,' and 'she has your eyes.' I think maybe she talks to my daddy. But I don't have a daddy, so I don't know who she means." Marcus couldn't breathe. "She has your eyes." Sarah had kept the baby. Of course she had. He'd known it intellectually from the moment he'd seen Emma, but hearing it confirmed. She'd kept the baby and raised her alone, worked herself to exhaustion, cried at night, talked to the ghost of the man who'd abandoned them both. "Emma, can I ask you something?" "Okay." "Do you know anything about your daddy? Did your mommy ever tell you about him?" Emma was quiet for a moment, thinking. "She said he wasn't ready to be a daddy. She said sometimes people make choices because they're scared, not because they're bad. She said I shouldn't be mad at him because being a grown-up is hard and sometimes people mess up." Marcus felt something break inside his chest. Sarah had protected him, even after everything he'd done, even after he'd abandoned her and their child. She'd protected his memory to Emma. She hadn't told their daughter that her father was a coward. She hadn't painted him as the villain he was. She'd given him grace he didn't deserve. "Your mommy sounds like a very special person," Marcus said, his voice rough. "She's the best mommy in the whole world." Emma's voice was fierce. "She reads me stories every night even when she's tired. She makes pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse on Saturdays. She knows all the words to every Disney song. When I'm scared, she holds me and sings until I'm not scared anymore. She's the best." "Mr. Webb?" Dr. Morrison appeared in the doorway of the waiting room. Her expression was neutral, the professional mask doctors wear when they're about to deliver news. Marcus stood up slowly. His heart was pounding. "Emma, can you wait here with—" He looked at the social worker. "Karen," she supplied. "With Karen. I need to talk to the doctor." Emma's eyes went wide with fear. "Is it bad news? Is my mommy—" "I don't know yet, sweetheart. Let me go find out, okay?" Marcus followed Dr. Morrison into the hallway, out of Emma's earshot. "How is she?" "Stable, for now. We've got her in the cardiac ICU. The good news is we think it was stress-induced cardiomyopathy, Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, also known as broken heart syndrome. The bad news is her heart was under extreme stress for an extended period. She's severely malnourished, anemic, and showing signs of chronic exhaustion. Her labs show she's been running on fumes for God knows how long. Will she survive? The next 24 hours are critical. If she makes it through tonight without another cardiac event, her prognosis is good. But Marcus, Dr. Morrison paused. What the hell happened to this woman? She looks like she's been through a war. She's a single mother working 2 jobs. She's been working herself to death. Well, she almost succeeded. Dr. Morrison's voice was sharp. Where's the father? Why isn't he helping support this child? Marcus looked at the floor. He wasn't in the picture. Wasn't in the picture? What does that mean? He abandoned them? He's dead? He's in jail? He was young and scared and stupid. Dr. Morrison studied him for a long moment. Her eyes narrowed. Marcus, do you know who the father is? Marcus didn't answer. He couldn't. Oh my God, it's you, isn't it? Still, Marcus said nothing. That little girl in there is your daughter. I don't know for sure. Bullshit. I saw your face when you brought her in. I saw you doing CPR like your own life depended on it. And that child has your eyes, Marcus. She has your exact eyes. Dr. Morrison's voice was hard. Does she know? Does Sarah know you're here? She was unconscious. I don't know if she realizes it was me. And the little girl? She doesn't know. Sarah told her that her father wasn't ready. That's it. Dr. Morrison let out a long breath. Okay, here's what's going to happen. You're going to go in there and tell that child that her mother is alive and fighting. You're going to be professional and kind. And then you're going to go home, and you're going to think long and hard about what kind of man you want to be. Because right now, Right now, you have a chance to do the right thing. Don't waste it." She walked away, leaving Marcus alone in the hallway. He'd spent 8 years trying to outrun his guilt. 8 years trying to become a good man through his work. But the truth was simpler and more brutal. He hadn't become a good man. He'd become a coward with a hero complex. He saved strangers because he couldn't face the people he'd failed. But maybe it wasn't too late. Maybe he could still be the man Sarah had believed he was 8 years ago, before he proved her wrong. Marcus walked back to the waiting room. Emma looked up at him with those eyes, his eyes, full of hope and terror. "Your mommy is alive," he said, and watched relief flood across her small face. "She's very sick, but she's alive, and the doctors are taking care of her. You can see her soon." Emma burst into tears, the good kind, the relief kind, and Marcus did something he hadn't planned to do. He picked her up and held her while she cried into his shoulder. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for saving my mommy." Marcus closed his eyes and held his daughter, this fierce, brave little girl who'd called 911 and saved her mother's life, and made a decision. He was done running. Sarah woke up to the beeping of monitors and the sterile smell of hospital disinfectant. Her chest ached. Her throat was raw. She was alive, which was surprising, because the last thing she remembered was pulling into the Target parking lot and thinking, "Not now. Please, not now." "Mommy." Sarah turned her head. Slowly, everything hurt, and saw Emma sitting in a chair next to her bed. Not alone. A social worker was with her, and behind them, standing in the doorway like he wasn't sure he had the right to enter, was Marcus Webb. Sarah's heart monitor spiked. Marcus, 8 years older, broader in the shoulders, lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before, but unmistakably him. The man who'd broken her heart. The man who'd given her Emma. The man she'd never expected to see again. "Mommy, you're awake!" Emma scrambled onto the bed, carefully, warned by the social worker to be gentle, and Sarah wrapped one arm around her daughter, pulling her close. "I'm okay, baby, I'm okay. You stopped breathing. I was so scared. But the paramedic came and he saved you." Emma turned to point at Marcus. "Him! He's the one. He did the thing with his hands on your chest and made you breathe again." Sarah's eyes met Marcus's across the room. She saw him swallow hard. "Emma," the social worker said gently, "why don't we go get a snack from the vending machine? Give your mom a few minutes to wake up properly." "But I just got her back." "I'll be right here," Sarah said softly. "I promise, I'm not going anywhere." Emma hugged her fiercely, then allowed herself to be led out of the room. The door closed behind them with a soft click. Silence. Sarah and Marcus stared at each other across 8 years of distance. "Hi," Marcus said finally. His voice was hoarse. "Hi. How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck, also like I'm having the world's most surreal dream." Sarah struggled to sit up. Marcus moved forward instinctively to help, then stopped himself. "What are you doing here, Marcus?" "I'm a paramedic. I was on shift. I responded to the call." "And you had no idea it was me?" "Not until I got there." Marcus moved closer to the bed, slowly, like he was approaching a wounded animal. "Sarah, I didn't know about Emma, about any of it. You changed your name. I went back to my mother's maiden name. I couldn't. I needed a fresh start. She's 7 years old. 8 in 3 months. She's my daughter." It wasn't a question, but Sarah answered anyway. "Yes." Marcus sat down heavily in the chair Emma had vacated. He put his head in his hands. When he looked up, his eyes were wet. "Why didn't you tell me?" Sarah laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Really? That's your question? You told me to take care of it. You said you'd feel trapped. You made it very clear you wanted nothing to do with me or a baby. What exactly was I supposed to do? Show up at your apartment with a pregnant belly and beg you to change your mind? I was 24 years old and an idiot. You were 24 years old and a coward, Sarah interrupted. There's a difference. Plenty of 24-year-olds manage to not abandon pregnant women. You made a choice, Marcus. I'm not saying it was easy. I'm saying it was your choice. I know I was. God, Sarah, I know what I did. I've known every single day for 8 years. Then why are you here? Why are you in my room asking me why I didn't tell you about the daughter you made very clear you didn't want? Because I was wrong, Marcus's voice broke. Because I was a selfish, scared kid who threw away the best thing that ever happened to him because he was too immature to handle real life. Because I spent 8 years trying to become a better person, and it didn't work because you can't fix the past by saving strangers. Because I just did CPR on the woman I loved while my daughter watched and begged me to save her mommy, and I realized that I've wasted 8 years running from the only thing that ever mattered. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then, the woman you loved? Past tense? No. Marcus's voice was raw. Present tense. Always present tense. I never stopped. I tried. God knows I tried. But I never stopped. Loving you, Sarah. That's not fair. I know. You don't get to show up now, after 8 years, after I've built a life and raised a child alone and worked myself into a heart attack, and tell me you never stopped loving me. That's not how this works. I know. Stop saying you know. What do you want me to say? Marcus stood up, pacing. That I'm sorry? I'm sorry. I'm so goddamn sorry I don't have words for it. That I was wrong? I was wrong about everything. That I want to fix it? I do, but I have no idea how, and I know I probably can't. What do you want from me, Sarah? I want you to leave. Sarah's voice rose, and immediately she regretted it as pain shot through her chest. The heart monitor beeped faster. I want you to go back to whatever life you built and leave me and Emma alone. We've been fine without you. You almost died today. Because I'm working 2 jobs to support us. Because Emma's school needs money for supplies, and her shoes are getting too small, and the rent went up, and I have student loans from a degree I never finished because I was too busy being pregnant and alone. Sarah was crying now, angry tears streaming down her face. You know what I did after you left? I tried to finish nursing school. I lasted 1 semester. Do you know what it's like to sit in anatomy class with morning sickness? To do clinical rotations when you're 6 months pregnant? I dropped out. I lost my scholarship. I took a job waiting tables, then cleaning offices, then anything that would give me flexible hours so I could be home with Emma. I built a life out of scraps because you left me with nothing. I know. Stop saying that. What else can I say? You're right. About all of it. I left you with nothing. I abandoned you. I ruined your life. I destroyed every dream you had. And I can't fix it. I can't go back in time and be the man you needed. But I'm here now, and I'm not leaving again. You don't get to decide that. You're right. I don't. But Emma is my daughter. Legally, morally, biologically, she's my daughter. And you can hate me. You can tell me to stay away from you. But I want to know her. I want to be part of her life. If you'll let me. Sarah closed her eyes. The fight was draining out of her, replaced by exhaustion. She doesn't know you exist. She thinks her father was just some guy who wasn't ready. I protected you, Marcus. Even after everything, I protected you. Why? Because she's a little girl who deserves to believe the best about people. Because I didn't want her growing up thinking her father was a monster. Because despite everything, Sarah's voice broke. Despite everything, I remember who you were before you got scared. The guy who helped me memorize temporal bones, who stayed up all night when I had the flu, who made me believe in love. That guy existed, Marcus. And I wanted Emma to believe her father could have been that guy, even if he wasn't brave enough to stick around. Marcus sat down again. He was crying openly now. I don't deserve you. I never did. No, you didn't. But that's not the point anymore. Sarah looked at him, really looked at him. The point is, what happens now? Emma is the center of my world. Everything I do is for her. So if you want to be part of her life, you need to understand something. You don't get to walk away again. You don't get to be Uncle Marcus who shows up for birthdays and then disappears when it gets hard. If you're going to be her father, you need to commit. All the way. No matter how scared you get. I understand. Do you? Because she's going to ask questions. She's going to want to know where you've been. Why you weren't there. And I can't lie to her forever. Then don't. Tell her the truth. Tell her I was young and scared and I made a terrible mistake. Tell her I spent 8 years regretting it. Tell her. Marcus took a shaky breath. Tell her that I'm sorry, and that I want to try to be the father she deserves. Before Sarah could respond, the door opened and Emma peeked in. Mommy, can I come back now? Sarah wiped her eyes quickly. Of course, baby. Emma ran to the bed and climbed up carefully. She looked between Sarah and Marcus, sensing something. Why are you crying? Are you crying because Mommy's sick? Marcus glanced at Sarah. She gave him a small nod. Emma, Marcus said gently, can I talk to you about something important? Okay. You know how your mommy told you that your daddy wasn't ready to be a daddy when you were born? Emma nodded slowly, her eyes going wide. Well, I'm your daddy, and your mommy was right. I wasn't ready. I was scared, and I made a very big mistake. I left when I should have stayed. Emma's mouth opened in a perfect O of surprise. She looked at Sarah, who nodded. You're my daddy? Yes. And I know I haven't been there. I know I missed everything. Your first steps and your first words and your first day of school. I know I can't get those things back. But if you'll let me, if your mommy says it's okay, I'd like to be here now. I'd like to know you. I'd like to be your daddy, if you'll have me. Emma was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then, do you know the words to Disney songs? The question was so unexpected that Marcus actually laughed. Some of them, not all of them. Mommy knows all of them. Can you make Mickey Mouse pancakes? I don't know. I've never tried. But I could learn. Emma thought about this seriously. Then, okay, you can be my daddy, but you have to learn the Disney songs. And the pancakes, those are important. Marcus let out a breath that was half laugh, half sob. Deal. I'll learn every Disney song ever written. Emma smiled, that beautiful gap-toothed smile, and held out her pinky finger. Pinky promise? Marcus wrapped his larger pinky around her tiny one. Pinky promise. Sarah watched this exchange with tears streaming down her face. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever fully. But it was a start. It was a chance. It was more than she'd thought she'd ever have. Emma's 10th birthday party was in full swing. The apartment, a much nicer apartment, larger, in a better neighborhood, was filled with her friends, all screaming and laughing and playing games. Mickey Mouse decorations covered every surface. Sarah stood in the kitchen, watching through the doorway, as Marcus, dressed in a ridiculous party hat, orchestrated a game of musical chairs. He'd gotten good at this, the dad thing, the parties, and the homework, help, and the bedtime stories. The Disney songs. He knew every single one now. The Mickey Mouse pancakes. He'd mastered them. He'd quit his old job and found a position at a smaller station with better hours. He showed up every day. He paid child support, back pay for years he'd missed, plus current support, plus extra. He'd set up a college fund. He'd been to every school event, every doctor's appointment, every dance recital. He'd kept his promise. It hadn't been easy. There had been hard conversations, therapy sessions, moments when Sarah wanted to scream at him for all the years he'd stolen, moments when Emma asked questions that didn't have good answers. But he'd stayed. When it got hard, when it got uncomfortable, when Emma had tantrums, or Sarah was cold, or the weight of his absence felt crushing, he stayed. And slowly, painfully, impossibly, they'd built something. Not a traditional family, not a fairy tale, but something real. Sarah's health had improved. With Marcus's financial support, she'd been able to quit the cleaning job. She was back in nursing school part-time, actually finishing her degree. She worked at the diner, but just one shift a day now. She slept. She ate regular meals. Her heart was healing. "Mommy," Emma called out, "come play. Daddy says you have to be on his team." Daddy. Emma called him that now. It had taken 6 months, but one day she'd just started saying it naturally. Sarah had cried that night, alone in her room, processing the complexity of giving her daughter the father she deserved while grieving all the years they'd lost. Marcus caught her eye across the room. He was smiling. That real, genuine smile she remembered from before everything went wrong. He'd aged. They both had. But there was something lighter about him now, like he'd been carrying a weight for 8 years and had finally set it down. Sarah smiled back. She didn't know if they'd ever be more than co-parents. She didn't know if she'd ever fully forgive him. Some days she looked at him and still saw the boy who'd abandoned her. Other days she saw the man who'd fought his way back, who'd kept every promise, who loved their daughter with a fierce, protective devotion that made up for nothing and everything simultaneously. But she knew this. Emma was happy. Emma had a father. Emma had pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse, and someone who knew all the Disney songs, and a daddy who showed up. And Sarah had help. She had support. She had someone to share the burden of raising a child, of paying bills, of navigating life. It wasn't the life she'd dreamed of 8 years ago, crying in Marcus's apartment. It wasn't the fairy tale ending, but it was real. It was messy and complicated and built on the ruins of broken promises. And it was enough. Marcus crossed the room with 2 plates of cake. "This one's for you. Emma insisted it had to have extra frosting because you love frosting. She's not wrong." They stood together, watching their daughter laugh with her friends. Emma looked up, saw them watching, and waved enthusiastically. Sarah waved back. "Thank you," Marcus said quietly. "For what?" "For giving me a chance. For letting me know her. For not giving up on me even when I gave up on myself." Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then, "I didn't do it for you. I did it for her. I know. And that's why you're the best mother I've ever known." Sarah looked at him. Really looked at him. "We're not okay, Marcus. We might never be fully okay. I know. But we're better than we were. We are. And you're a good father. You became a good father. I need you to know that." Marcus's eyes filled with tears. "That might be the best thing anyone's ever said to me." Emma ran over, throwing her arms around both of them. "Group hug. It's my birthday, and I say we need a group hug." Sarah and Marcus exchanged a look over their daughter's head. Then they wrapped their arms around her, around each other, and held on. It wasn't forgiveness, not completely, but it was family. Broken, rebuilt, imperfect, real. And in the end, maybe that was the only kind that mattered.